Hey everybody, are you having a hard time rendering your videos or playing your games? We don't care about game playing. But if you're having a hard time with all the massive files and the bigger programs and your old computer just can't deal with it anymore, or little hinky weird stuff is going on, or maybe it's dying like mine did, you might have to upgrade. Or you might have to build your own system like we're going to do here in a minute. Because let's face it guys, let's be prepared. There's a lot of new stuff coming from YouTube and the files and the programs are getting bigger. So, you know, you can't use mama's laptop forever to get you through. So come on the journey, let's go build us a computer. Hey everybody, welcome to the garage. This is where we're going to work on the monster build. Keep in mind, right behind that door, right over there, is a heavy traffic. So if you hear cars going by, I apologize up front. You know, there's a lot of decisions to make on your build, and the first one is what size case are you going to use and how much room do you have? The case that I settled on was the Corsair Carbide Series 600C case. We're going to open it up in a minute and show you some of the features of this case, but it's a full ATX tower case, you know, one of the big ones like the old days. I'm old school. I like to get in there and move around and be able to get my paws in and work on stuff. Considering I haven't taken a computer apart since what, 386, 30 years ago, give or take, you know, this should be interesting. What could possibly go wrong? Corsair always does a nice job packing these up. As you can see, it's fully encased in styrofoam, and the case itself is inside a nice little bag. So let me get it out of the packing and we'll go through it. As big as this case is, it looks pretty slick. You'll see in the front here there is a door. It's recessed, very nice, with some sound deadening capabilities. There's two slots here for an optical drive or a DVD. I probably won't be using those. I'll be using a external DVD or something. The front panel does come off. If you look on the side, you'll see that there's these little slots. That's because back in here there's a little air filter. You can take this front off if you wanted. Up on top you have your power button, and then you have a fan selector switch which will turn your fans high, low, medium. This does come with, I believe, 3 fans in it. We'll get to in a bit. You have your USB ports. I think one is USB. The blues are 3.1 USBs and the others are regular 2.0s, so that you can go backward compatible. And then of course you have the on and off switch to get everything to go on and off. And then you have a fan on and off switch in addition to the other switch. So if you want to look this case up online, it's the Corsair Carbide 600C. You know, you can look at all the specs for that. You'll also notice in the front, this door opens up to the right. Now the reason I like this case and picked this case is because this door opens to the right, which means I can get to it and put it to the left of me on my desk versus having it to the right where everything normally is, like my phone or my printer. So this kind of sits to the left of the keyboard, which makes the, you know, working surface more utilized. The bottom of this case, vent here like there is behind here, which is a little filter that you take out and clean, keeps a lot of dust out of your system. You have plenty of expansion slots, and that will all depend on what motherboard you put in there. This is the plate that'll be for an I/O, where all your things like your, you know, your USB, your wireless internet, your connections and things like that. That's where that plate would be from the motherboard. You have another fan in the back here. And then this big area is for the power supply. Another reason I picked this case is because when everything is installed, it's actually inverted upside down. So instead of the power supply being on the bottom, it's on top. The motherboard is down towards the bottom. It's basically an upside down case. Kind of like my turbulent life right at this moment. It's upside down, so this is, you know, kind of a computer that I'm building to reflect that. And every time I look at it, I'll say, hey, when things are better, I dug my way out, and this will remind me. This is the inside. This door is not tempered glass. It is a acrylic door, which I'm not thrilled about, but this is a budget case, you know. These cases go on sale, I think, anywhere from 89 bucks to 110 bucks. Very reasonable versus buying a $200 case or something like that. The other thing about this door is, instead of having to get the door and take it all kinds of screws apart, it just pops right off of the hinges like that. So I'm going to put this door in the box right now so it doesn't get scratched or hurt, and we don't have to worry about it. If you look inside, you can see that it's very roomy and open. You already have 2 fans here installed. This is where the power supply, extra cords are going to go. Okay, very nice. And we'll get to the back here in a little bit, but these are rubber grommets. So when we go into the back, you can have the wire management going towards the back. So let me get the back opened up here, which is real simple. Just take out these 2 thumb screws right here. Slide this cover off, and that's it for the back cover. And now, if you look in the back here, you can see that you have the 3 slots for the SSD drives. You have the rubber grommets for wire management. These will go all over the, depending which way you're going to put them in. You have little things like this to use tie downs if you want to make them look nice. And in addition, this is where your addict is for your power supply, and you have 2 drive bays up top here for the older style hard drives if you're going to use them. This particular build, I'll get into it, we're only using 1 regular hard drive as a storage. Inside this box right here, there'll be a box of screws and hardware, various little things. By the way, there will be a link in my description. I'm not going to go through every single feature of every part that we're doing. Just go into the description, open that up, hit the link, it'll take you right to Amazon. You can either buy something and support the channel, or you can move on and buy something else. The next couple components we're going to talk about is the power supply and the cooling fan for the CPU. These are a little out of order, but I wanted to discuss these because they're made by the same manufacturer as the case. Since I have not rebuilt a PC in 30 years, I just thought it would be easier to keep some things from the same manufacturer so I know they matched up. One of the critical areas in building your own PC is, you don't get any support from anybody once you buy them. I mean, you have a warranty and you can turn them back, and that's great. But if you buy parts that don't fit or won't comply, you're kind of stuck with them. In the case of hard parts like these, like a power unit or the fan, that's not a huge deal. Usually you can re-drill some screw holes or something like that, but why bother with all that problem? So if you're ordering parts, always check, as you go down the list, that everything's kind of compatible with each other. You can use, other people's cooling fans. This power supply that's in my hands here and the cooling fan I'm going to show you, they were on sale, obviously, because I'm cheap. And there's better ones out there, more cost-effective ones out there. But anyways, let's get into it. This is the RM750 power supply from Corsair. It's a great little supply. It comes with all the cables you're going to need. If you look at them here, you've got a list of cables, and once again, you can go online. The link will be in the description. But you have your 24-pin cables for all the power, your 8 pins for the graphic cards, different adapters like the SATA cables for the drives and whatnot. This is their Gold series. They sell other least expensive, but when I was looking this up, this was at like 30 bucks off, so it actually cost the same as a 500 watt power supply, and it's gold, which means it has better components. So there's gold, silver, bronze. So for the same price, it's 30 bucks off. That was a no-brainer. Why do I have 750 watts? You want a minimum 500. And if you're going to, in the future, add more memory, more power, more graphic cards, more drives, whatever the case may be, a chip that consumes more power, all that stuff adds up. So this is a nice power supply. It's not overkill. Don't waste your money on 1,000 watts or 850. This is about as high as you need to go. The next component we have here, this is the H100i water cooler. If you're not going to overclock your CPU, which is basically getting into the BIOS, and tweaking the megahertz so that it runs faster, you're probably not going to use this. If you're only rendering small videos and doing YouTube every once in a while, you probably won't need this. But if you do YouTube fairly often, you have big videos, and then every once in a while you're going to play games, you know, you're kind of borderline. Instead of going with a regular fan, you may want to consider one of these. But, you know, they have plenty of fans that aren't water cooled that'll do just fine. And we'll talk more about this once we install it, and there'll be a link down in that description as well. These next two items are the heart and soul of your computer system. I really took a lot of time to figure out which ones I wanted that I thought would be best for video rendering and streaming, live streaming over YouTube. So to start off with, we have the Intel i7 7700 Kaby Lake processor. This is a 4-core, 8-thread hyper-threading. It's got an 8 megabyte cache. It runs at about 4.2 megahertz. I'm going to be overclocking this probably about 4.9. Most of you won't. That's something that a lot of gamers do. Basically, you're adding more juice to the processor, making it run a little faster. The reason I'm doing that is because that's called future proofing. So if programs or things get bigger and need more speed, you know, you're ready for it. To be honest with you, the term future proof, there is no future proofing. The system I'm putting together, I'll be able to upgrade for quite a while, but there's no future proofing. To go along with that, next is the motherboard. Your motherboard is really critical. You know, everything that you get, all the memory, the processors, you need to make sure that they run or are compatible with your motherboard. So when you get a motherboard, you want to make sure that you ask that manufacturer, hey, you know, will this processor run with it? Will this memory run with it? Make sure you get signed off on it. You know, it's kind of funny on this this iCore 7, it's unlocked, but it also has a VR, meaning virtual reality. You know, there's really no virtual reality, so I just said, hey, that's for video rendering. Video rendering is great. Unlocked means, once again, that I can overclock it. You know, you can get all different prices on this. I'll have a link to it in my Amazon. You know, look around. And I saved about 60 bucks by shopping around on this. You know, it took me about 6 months to get all these parts. And my family's kind of joking me, saying, yeah, by the time you get everything collected and put together, it'll already be obsolete. Anyways, back to the motherboard. This is the ASUS Maximus 9 Hero motherboard. Both of these components that I'm talking about right now, the processor and this board, are consumer class products. They are the top part of the consumer class, unlike all the other components that I showed you where you can skimp. You really want to get the most that you can afford. The good thing about this board is if you're just upgrading your system, it's compatible all the way back to like the Pentium chips. And so you should be able to hook in your regular hard drive, your Pentium chips, you know, your 2133 megahertz memory that you have and that kind of stuff. Always ask them first, but you know, then you can add more components as you go. This has a lot of features to it, one being that it has the Z270 chipset from Intel, which means when Intel comes out with their faster memory called Optane, it's going to be ready for that because it has the chipset. It has a better audio for stereo in it. It just has a lot of features. If I turn this around, it's the Supreme FX high definition audio. It has M2 slots for storage. It has 6 SATA slots. It just has a lot going on for it. There are boards that are a little cheaper. Once again, you know, this board is at the top of the ASUS consumer line. You know, the next step up is enthusiast class, and you really start getting into money. But I didn't want to skimp. I wanted to make sure any memory I got is going to work. Any drive I got is going to work. The NVMe slots for the really fast memory cards are going to work. We'll get into that in a little while. So that's the board there. We'll know more about it when we start putting it together. I'll show you more. Once again, the links will be down in the description. Just click on it and you can go right there. Next set of components that we have going on is the drives and the memory. So I'm just going to kind of go through these real quickly. This drive here is a hard drive like you're used to. My laptop's turning at 5200 RPMs. This one turns at 7200 RPMs. I don't want to take it out of the package, but it's a 2 terabyte Seagate drive, very cheap, about $100 on sale. I mean, that's a lot of storage, and this will be used for storage. You know, my older computer that died used it for the main drive. So in other words, the processor had to go to this drive, get the information, process it, put it back here to save it, move it around. You know, this is a lot faster than the drive I had, but it's still a mechanical drive. So this will be used as storage, as a backup. I'll also back up to the cloud, but this will be inside the computer as like drive Z as a backup. The next step up from that drive are these drives right here. These are solid state drives, very fast, transferring like 550 megabytes a second. This is a 960 gigabyte drive. It's half the size of that, but it's, you know, 8 times, 10 times as fast. This is solid state. It hooks up through a SATA connection. It's compatible with my board. It's a middle of the line. You know, there's way more expensive ones. There's some cheaper ones. Western Digital makes it same size, but a little cheaper. It's a good drive. Okay, this is going to house all my regular files. You know, all my regular programs, my browsers. Every time I save a file, you know, like a video file or some big file, that's where all this is going. So it's going, you know, from the program to here, like we always did, and then to back it up, it'll go to this drive. The next 2 drives I have, these are ME SSD cards, or NVMe, or M.2 cards. These go on the PCIe slots. These are extremely fast. About the only thing faster than these in your system is going to be the CPU itself, or maybe if you had extremely high memory. The interesting thing about these are an option. You don't really need these, but they're real fast. I'm going to put the Windows operating system on them, and I'm going to put just the 2 programs, my video graphic program and my video rendering program, and they're going to run off of these drives. Now, the difference in these drives versus the hard drive or even the other SSD drive is, yeah, they're way faster, but they're more volatile. So when I set Windows up on here, all of the folders, like the download folder, video folder, the picture folder, all that will be duplicated on this drive, and I'll tell Windows in the settings to send it over there. That way I only have the operating system and the 2 programs running on this. The reason for it being, if these were to crash or die, I'm just replacing the operating system from a backup, or I'm redoing the download for the programs themselves, and I'm not downloading all the other stuff. I'm not downloading all the files and backing all up and all that, so it'll be relatively painful. So if you got a virus or something like that and you had to redo it. The other reason I got these is the motherboard that I told you about can set these up in what they call a RAID configure. So I can have 2 separate drives, like A and B, or B and C like you're used to now, or I can combine them in a RAID, and it'll be one big 500 megabyte or gigabyte drive, and that's how Windows will see it. I'm going to try to set it up where the Windows is on one as C drive, like you normally do, and then my 2 programs are on this one as D drive, and then this will be E drive, where everything will put the information on, okay, and then this will be F or whatever for a backup. So we'll see how that works. I may wind up doing them as a RAID drive as one, or I might do them separate as 2 separate drives. Since I haven't cracked open a computer since the 386 days, you know, it's going to be interesting. I mean, what can possibly go wrong with all this? The last time I opened the computer was on a 386, and at that time, 30 years ago, I pretty much was starting to get out of working on computers, building them, and my wife bought me a 486, and at the time they were thousands of dollars. They were really expensive, and you know, at first I was just thrilled, and I was like, oh my God, this is so great. But the next day I came to my senses and made her take it back. All this stuff combined probably cost about 1/3 of what that machine cost. And this is probably 100 times faster and 1,000 times more storage and whatnot and computing power. It's really kind of interesting. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is just regular memory. Once again, check with your motherboard. This is a matching set. I have 4 slots for memory, so I'll use 2 slots. The thing with this is to check your motherboard and make sure you're using 2 of the proper slots. if you had just 16 gigs, you would have 2 8s, where you could get 4 8 sticks, which would be, 32. So I'm using 2 16 gigs for a total of 32, and that's about where I want to be. A lot of people run on 16. I just want to have that little extra. The other thing is, this is ramped up to 32 megahertz. Now, to utilize that fully, this board that I got may see it. It says it's compatible and might instantly see it. If not, I can go into the board in the BIOS and the little program and change it, which means it'll overclock. It's using a little bit more juice, running a little faster. A lot of people don't need to do that. Once again, that's the going forward, faster programs, whatever. If it doesn't overclock and I have problems, I'll just leave it at the normal 2133 megahertz, call it a day, and it'll be still just as fast as I need it to be. So normally you pay for DDR4 RAM, which this is. You'll pay more for the higher speeds. You really don't need it. Once again, got it on sale, looked at the cheap brand. This was the same price on sale. Called up the manufacturer of the motherboard. They said, yeah, it's compatible. That's a no-brainer. You do what you need, make sure that you get what you can afford, but you really don't need to get up to 3200 megahertz. Now, if you don't want to build a computer, because you don't like taking things apart, then you're going to pay probably about $600 to $800 more if you buy a system, of this caliber altogether. But if you're a little handy and you take your time, there's plenty of YouTube videos. There's a couple guys you can watch, and I'll put their links in the description. One is Paul's Hardware. He does a lot of build videos. One is Linus Techs. He talks about all the, really high-tech junk and the differences. Another one is Bitwit. He does builds and talks about high-tech junk, and so does Paul's Hardware. So those three guys, if you decide you're going to build your own system, you can write down on paper what you want, check out their videos on how to build it, start pricing it out, and when you put it all together, just check with the manufacturer that everything is compatible, and then you can build your own. Just keep in mind, the downside of building your own is, while every one of these parts is warranted, in other words, manufacturer defect, I can send it back if it's actually broken, it has nothing to do with if I short it out because I put it in wrong, or compatibility problems, I bought this but it doesn't work with this, or issues with the software. I go to load up Windows and do a RAID or this, that, and the other, and it doesn't support it. Now I'm mad and I want to return it. That's all on the builder. So, if you pay a guy to build a system for you, the extra $600, $800, $900, whatever, he normally will have all that figured out. And if you have a problem, he'll figure it out for you. If you do it yourself, you figure it out. You're looking for things that are compatible both physically, mechanically, and software-wise. The last component we're going to talk about is the graphic card. Now, for us guys, YouTube guys and all that, this is not critical, not like the gaming guys. So I settled on this GeForce GTX 1060. This is made by NVIDIA. The only downside to this is that I cannot put it in SLI mode, which means if later down the line I wanted to get into gaming and I wanted to put 2 graphic cards on my board, even though my board would support it, I can't do that with this. The upside of this is it has 6 megabytes, of memory, which is really going to help me for streaming. The other upside of it is the cost. It's a third of the cost of a 1070 or a 1080. These have really come down because they're not the latest and greatest. And us guys for video rendering don't need the latest and greatest because, if you're going to run a 4K screen, that's the latest and greatest, and you're going to need 2 1080 cards anyways. So that's the only thing you need it for. But this will help you with online streaming, which is good. And it'll handle most of your games pretty good, and it'll stream online games. It just won't be, the biggest, baddest, bragging right, whatever. The other reason I got this is because it has a back plate. It looks nice instead of just having the open back. It also has 3 fans, which helps with cooling. And it's built on a T70 or a T1070, whatever they call it, graphic card from from the video, which has a bigger cooling platform and bigger fins and cooling pipes. So this card will run extremely cool. So even though I'm overclocking, you know, this card's out of the box overclocked, which I don't have to go tweak, which is nice, but I'm going to be overclocking my memory, I'm going to be overclocking my processor. You know, I'm running this big card, I've got all this stuff, all these drives. This runs really, really cool. It's just not adding to anything. It runs much cooler than the 70 or the 80. You know, here again, this was on sale. Got it not only like 20 bucks off, but then they had a $30 mail-in rebate. Then they had 2 free video games for a download, which I emailed to my son, and he plays those. He loves them. So that was a really, really good deal. So what I'm trying to tell you is, you know, take a couple months, you know, buy your parts, get them at good prices, research a little bit, watch those guys' videos I was telling you about. You don't have to buy it all from one vendor, and then, you know, start building your computer.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my videos. I really hope you enjoy them. If you have a comment or a question, leave it in the comments section below. I'll be glad to answer it as soon as I can, or maybe one of my subs will. But remember, please hit that subscribe button that's going to pop up, and YouTube is going to put more videos for you to watch over here. So enjoy yourself, grab the popcorn, and just remember, we really appreciate you being part of our family and subscribing to our channel. All the support you give us has been wonderful. So have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.